So I think we are live, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on ITIL version 5 AI and operating models. My name is Nektaria Kriketou, and I will be your host today on behalf of Pink Elephant. I'm also very pleased to introduce you to our main speaker for today's session, who is Richard de Boer. Richard is a senior trainer and consultant with Pink Elephant, specializing in IT service management, ITIL and project management. And joining Richard today, we also have Roman Zhuravlev, a senior ITIL architect and development manager at PeopleCert, who will also be supporting and facilitating today's session. Roman brings more than 20 years of experience as an ITSM practitioner, consultant, trainer, and author, and he has been a key contributor to the continual development of the ITIL framework. We're very pleased to have both in today's sessions, and we're very excited to be hosting this webinar for you. And with that, I think I will just hand it over to your capable hands, Richard, so you can get us started. Enjoy the webinar, everyone.
Thank you very much, Nektaria. Yeah, welcome everybody also from my side. Thank you for joining today's webinar. Over the next 45 minutes till an hour, we would like to explore a topic that I think is becoming one of the most defining organizational challenges in this decade. And interestingly enough, that's not AI itself. It's no longer the question if AI will dominate service management. And the real question is, how are organizations capable to operationalize AI in a responsible way? We know nowadays that organizations are moving incredibly fast. AI capabilities evolves almost weekly. Digital ecosystems are becoming more connected to each other. Customers' expectations are rising continually. A lot of organizations, are under the pressure of continuously innovate, while also on the other hand remaining stable, secure, compliant, efficient, resilient, and that creates a really important realization. Again, it's AI itself is not changing technology. AI at this moment is actually changing how organizations operate and should operate, how they make decisions, how workflow functions, how services are delivered, in the end, how value is created. So this is exactly where I think ITIL becomes very relevant for this, because if you're looking at ITIL nowadays, it's no longer focusing on traditional IT service management. And that framework has evolved to digital product and service management, to value streams, lifecycle thinking, product to service lifecycle thinking, governance, continuous improvement. It's becoming a modern operating model, and that's why I'm very happy that Roman is joining us today as a co-author behind the ITIL publication. You know a lot about these topics, and throughout the webinar, I would like you to reflect on something, and I have some questions for you, if you don't mind, so I can learn from it myself as well.
Not at all. Very, very happy to be here, and of course, happy to answer any questions.
Perfect. So let's dive into briefly the structure of today's session. We'll start with organizations and the introduction to the organizational context, and then the evolution. We move to the evolution of ITIL. We're looking at operating models, how value is being created, the guiding principles that ITIL has offered us, and what role they have in context with AI, life cycle thinking as itself, the 4 dimensions, and finally AI-enabled operating models and governance. Throughout the session, you are allowed to ask questions. Of course, we have a few moderators that are constantly looking at the questions. So if you're looking at the question segment of this webinar, you can ask your questions, and Nektaria will make sure that we'll be aware of those questions and can answer them directly. If not, at the end, there's also time to come back to those questions. But feel free the session. So before we're going to talk about AI operating models, talk about governance, before we're going to talk about frameworks, I think it's good to first have an organizational context. Because this is where operating models actually takes place. So if you're looking at organizations, each organization exists to create value. We could say if an organization is no longer delivering value, there is no need for it. And so adding value is the foundation of every organization and is also the foundation of product and service management. And that value may come in very different forms. That can come in the products and the services that we are delivering, but also in the experiences that our customers will have, the way that an organization is able to innovate, or other operational outcomes that they may deliver. I always get very emotional when I'm looking at this part of this training. It's really important that organizations in the end help stakeholders to achieve their outcomes, the outcomes they would like to achieve. And this is also one of the central messages within ITIL. What we see that in today's world, that value is increasingly co-created. And that means that organizations no longer create value alone, and value emerges from collaboration between providers, customers, partners, suppliers, platforms, digital ecosystems. And also, Roman, this is perhaps a question I would like to ask you. If you're looking at the introduction of ITIL 5, next to the traditional roles of the customer or consumer, as it was said in an ITIL 4, and the providers, we also see nowadays there are digital vendors are positioned as ecosystem. What was actually the most important reason why you choose to add that extra role next to the current service provider roles?
Well, there are two. One are those of you who remember version 3, Richard, you certainly do remember version 3, may remember that we used to have a life cycle model where the three main life cycle phases were design, transition, and operation. And obviously there was a gap between design and transition, because after we design something and before we transition it into the life environment, we need to either buy it or build it. Those days, during version 3 times, there were reasons to ignore that part or to consider it outside of the scope of ITIL. But starting with version 4, it became clear that we cannot just ignore that important phases or steps or stages in the life cycle. And in the new version, they are reflected as and described as acquire and build. And organizations who build technology solutions that are used to deliver services are called in ITIL digital product vendors. It's a role. It doesn't need to be an organization that is a vendor on the market and just sells a product that they produce. It can be internal development team. It can be a commercial organization. But another important reason for bringing in this role is that over years, our industry has developed two bubbles, two silos that tend to bounce from each other rather than merge, and that is not good for business, for value creation. This is not good for the industry. One is the product management bubble, the other one is the service management bubble. People who think of themselves as of product managers do not go to service management conferences, do not read service management books, and product conferences are not attended by service managers. We exist in parallel worlds, despite the fact that we are actually preaching the same guiding principles. We evolved, product teams evolved from projects to products, service teams evolved from operating systems to delivering services, and we developed the same set of principles. Focus on value, progressive delivery feedback, continual development, portfolio thinking, even if they are not worded as the ITIL's principles, they are the same. And with ITIL 5, we are really trying to bring these two communities closer together. Hence, the explicit role of the product vendor in our models as early as foundation. And for the same reason, we have a dedicated book on product. ITIL product is addressed to the product organizations. We believe that products, digital products, are all experienced and assessed as a service. So they have potential value, but they don't create value unless they are consumed as a service. And at the same time, all digital services are based on digital products and therefore cannot exist without digital products. So considering these two perspectives in isolation is, well, it means artificially narrowing your bandwidth. And we encourage the users and the readers of ITIL to see both perspectives, the product and the service.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, we will come back to those, by the way, later on. But indeed, it's good to recognize also that as a service provider, you're quite often, or a service consumer yourself as well, of those digital vendors. And it's a more complex ecosystem than we quite often think about at the beginning.
Moreover, every organization is a product provider and is a service consumer. Sorry, a service provider and a service consumer. And some organizations are also product vendors. But in the service economy, we all consume services and we all deliver services.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Oh, thanks for that, Roman. So if we move on, if we're looking at, so we know that the organization's purpose should be creating value. That organization's purpose has influence on how it operates itself. And so the operations purpose defines the operating models. And within operating models, and we have value streams that actually shows us how we create value. And based on those value streams, there are management practices. We used to call them, and sometimes I still call them, sorry to say it here out loud, processes. But actually, the capabilities that makes it possible to actually create that value in that value stream. And I think this is really important to understand it from an operating model perspective, because again, if you're looking at customers, they don't experiencing isolated processes, they're experiencing journeys, they're experiencing services, they're experiencing outcomes. And for that, we need to move on, and we have to understand that operating models are aligned with the purposes of organizations. So what exactly is then an operating model? So if you're looking at it, this is like this is being introduced in ITIL 5. An operating model could be seen as a blueprint of how an organization operates. You know, it shows us how work flows, how decisions are being made, how governance is being applied, the teams that are collaborating, the technology that is being used, and the information that is being used to make that technology possible. And so it gives us a good overview. And this is what I really like about how ITIL has defined it, because it shows us that everything is connected. The technology, the people, the suppliers, information, the value chains, and governance, and of course also the organizational systems on which it runs, it's all connected to each other. And this is no longer just service management, and this is actually an organization design. So operating models helps us to understand how we operate and how we work together and make sure that everything fits. By the way, within the value chain here, we see some activities, and those activities are connected to the product and service lifecycle, which I will introduce later on a bit more in depth. But those operating models are quite often under enormous pressure. If you're looking at what happens, digitalization accelerates continuously. The technology ecosystems become very complex. Organizations are increasingly depending on platforms, on cloud providers, on automation, also on AI-enabled capabilities. And at the same time, we need to balance innovation with speed, being resilient. Also think about the customer experience. Well, we're looking at traditional operating models, and they were more focusing and designed on stability, on control, on predictability. But nowadays we see that modern organizations increasingly require adaptation. So Roman, again, a question for you, because of course in ITIL 4 and in ITIL v3 we're also shown a kind of operating model, because it shows us how we are performing service management. Do you think that those operating models could also deal with the challenges that organizations have today? Or did we actually need to evolve the operating model in ITIL in a structural base?
Well, I would say yes, we did.
Hopefully.
That's why we created the new version, and that's why we call it. It's not a badge on a cover, but I would call it our complexity native, unlike the previous versions, because all these factors that are on the screen, they can also be mapped to what ITIL describes. It's not our model; we adopted it from other sources, the PESTEL model. So at least 6 factors, external factors, that we should consider when we plan how our organization will work. PESTEL stands for political, economic, social, technology, legal, environmental, and they all can be mapped to what we have on the slide right now. And all those factors are changing very fast, because the, let's say, VUCA-ness of the environment around us, their volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity has only increased in the last years, and there are no signs of this going to disappear or slow down. So organizations need to become very adaptable, very agile, with a small a, and new ITIL helps to do that by, for instance, evolving the continual improvement model to be more agile and recognize that sometimes we know where we are, but we are not sure where we want to be, let alone how to get there. We just want to be in a better place than here. And instead of defining smart objectives and implementing plans, we have to experiment, and we have to distill some assumptions and to hypothesize and to confirm or waive away those hypotheses. And this is now in the basic levels, at the basic level, in the basic models of ITIL. And another very important addition here is the changes in the strategy book and the transformation book. Both offer a way more flexible, way more agile approach to our organizational planning, and then to implementation of those plans in the constantly changing environment. We didn't have this complexity-focused guidance in earlier versions, even in version 4, and that's a very important reason for version 5 to be a new version, and very important, let's say, value proposition of the new version.
Yeah, oh, great. And I think it actually, what you said actually makes sense. So we need to evolve. And it's also an evolution. It's not something completely new. It's an evolution based on what happens surrounding us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Compared to all previous changes of the versions, if you compare version 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, they were revolutionary, and they built a new architectural foundation for each new version. Version 5 is clearly an evolution of version 4, and a good indicator of this is the fact that at the foundation level, we accept the version 4 foundation as a prerequisite for higher versions in version 5 if people go for certification. We don't require to upgrade the foundation. It's possible, and some people prefer doing this, but it's not a requirement in terms of prerequisites. The foundational concepts are maybe 75% the same.
Yeah. Thanks for indeed mentioning that as well. one of the things that, because you mentioned VUCA, one of the things that I think is very well showing what VUCA means is how we're dealing with AI nowadays. And I really like this research. It's being done by LegalFly, the AI governance gaps, 5 key findings. And one of the things that struck me was this. About 90%, and perhaps even it's more nowadays. I really believe perhaps it's more. 90% of organizations utilizing AI in daily operations. Think about using ChatGPT, to write a document or to create an email, or use Copilot in order to search through documents. So we're using AI on a daily basis more and more and more. And the thing is, and this is where I think it's become very interesting, of those 90% of organizations that are actually using AI in daily operations, only a small part of it actually thought about AI governance. And this, I think, can be, what we call here the AI governance gap. This can be a challenge because AI on itself is not only accelerate value, it also accelerates poor governance and weak processes and bad data. So we have to think about how to deal with this governance part as well. And I'm very happy that also within ITIL 5 we are addressing this governance part when it concerns also to AI. Let's talk more about the evolution of ITIL itself. We know where we stand, we know what organizations are. So let's see how ITIL has evolved along the way a little bit. Historically, you could say that ITIL was strongly associated with more traditional IT service management. Organizations mainly connected ITIL with incident management, change management, the operational processes, the service desk, operation stability, which was important. And those things still are, of course, very important for organizations. But we just saw that organizations themselves also evolved in a dramatic way. And technology is no longer just to support the business. In a lot of organizations, technology became the business. And this is also why ITIL needed to evolve. If you're looking at this picture, you see on the left-hand side and the silo structure that many organizations had. Development operations, but also finance support, just like you just mentioned, Roman, earlier on, where you just saw that also in ITIL V3 we were looking at design, transition, and operation, and they were acting a little bit, perhaps even though it was not intended, as silos. And nowadays we're looking much more to cross-functional collaboration between teams, because again, a customer don't want to have a good incident management process. They want to have good services. This is actually the value that they were getting from it. On the other hand, we see also something else that happens. And also this is a reason why I think indeed, and also you explained it, ITIL needed to evolve, because we're no longer just supporting just products. Products and technology has joined together. And actually that delivers some challenges that we have to deal with. So if you're looking at, for instance, and you were just mentioning, Roman, and the difference between product management and service management, and actually they share the same activities, but also they share the same products. If I'm looking at my own household, I mean, my doorbell has nowadays is a service. It's no longer just a product. It's a digital product, but also there's a service connected to it. So what's your vision on this, especially perhaps on the product side? Oh, you muted, sorry.
There are two spectrums, two continuums to consider here. One is there are good to service continuum, and how product can include goods and services, and that's one thing that is a rather old discussion of the goods versus services, transfer versus success, and the service dominant logic, and things that have been evolving over the last few decades. I'll try to make it very short using an example from, again, everyone's life. So digital product described by, as defined and described by ITIL, is a combination of technology resources intended to create value for our consumers. And it may have digital and non-digital components, like it's shown on the diagram on the bottom part of the slide. So there are products that are mostly non-digital or purely non-digital, and there are products that are purely digital, pieces of software products. Many products are somewhere in between, and some of them are digitally supported, some of them are digitally enabled. So here is an example of a digitally enabled product, its components, and the importance of the service in realization of value of this product. I have a smartwatch. I usually do it like this, but today I will do it like this. I have a smartwatch. This smartwatch is a piece of equipment which I bought from the producer, from vendor and service provider. These roles in this case are combined. And it's now mine. I can put it away, I can disassemble it, I can resell it. That piece of equipment I are consumed through the form of relationship which ITIL describes as transfer of goods. It's now mine. The problem is that without the underlying digital service and digital product, this piece of equipment is useless. There is some software on the watch which I don't own. I use it as a service, and it's maintained, updated, and provided by the same organization. And if they stop supporting that software tomorrow, this piece of equipment will become useless. Even with just access to that piece of software on the watch, it's still not a complete product or service as designed as it's supposed to be experienced, because there is another piece of software that is running on my smartphone that is connected to that watch, and together they form like a wider product architecture, and they increase the value of the service that I consume. I have different tiers of subscription for that software on my phone, and I can pay extra for extra features, so I keep it at the relatively free, let's say free way. But moreover, both these pieces of software, they regularly connect to something that is owned by the vendor and is running in a cloud. I don't see it, I didn't subscribe to it, but without that cloud part of the product, these pieces of software will not realize their full functionality, full utility. So the product in this case includes something in the cloud, something on the smartphones, something on the actual watch devices, on the wearables, and a piece of equipment. A piece of equipment is a good within this product. It's transferred to me. Everything else I access as a service, so I have access to resources. And on top of that, my relationship with the vendor or official vendor representatives include or may include service actions. When I ask for support, when I ask to set it up, when I ask for update, all those are service actions. Some of them are triggered by me, some of them are triggered by some events.
Yeah.
So we are in service relationship with Apple or Garmin or Huawei or your wearable provider of choice, even if you see the immediate interface as a piece of wearable that you seem to own. So in all cases, when we look at digitally enabled or purely digital products, they are accessed as a service. So we cannot ignore the service delivery part of product management, because this is where the value is realized. So every product vendor is either acts as a service provider or explicitly delegates service provision to a partner, which again, coming back to the topic of our conversation, defines the operating model of different organizations. Because maybe as a vendor, I also act as a service provider. maybe as a vendor, I only deliver pieces of digital products, and another dedicated provider within their operating model is focusing on delivering, operating, and supporting services based on products created by another organization. Maybe I combine the two roles, in which case I will be performing all 8 activities of product and service management. So that's the spectrum from digital to from non-digital to digital, from goods to services, and modern digital and digitally enabled products are all somewhere in the middle of this spectrum, because they include non-digital elements and digital elements, and because they are all delivered and accessed as a service.
Yeah, perfect. It's also, I think it's very good how you explain it, that we're moving away from products to including products, like everything is included to each other, and that also really ask also for another way of working, just like you said, and that is really requiring another operating model. And I think also this is because I put them like this here in this slide deck here. And this is why I think our operating model now, but perhaps larger, this the value system of ITIL can be very, very helpful to really understand what those products and services are that we are delivering, and then how we are delivering it, and what is needed, and also the change from the more silo approach that we saw in ITIL v3. And for those who have good view, good eyes, can recognizing a little bit on the left-hand side, but I deliberately grayed it out because we're now looking at a new way of dealing with it. And the service value system, which not only shows us the operating model itself in the value chain, but also includes the guiding principles, governance, and the 34 practices that we might be using, and of course continual improvement, and to actually deliver value to our customers. So what are some key themes, other key themes that we can find in ITIL? We won't be discussing all of them, but I think it's good that you have this overview. Other key themes is that the framework on itself strongly emphasis on governance, on value streams, on lifecycle management, AI, but also still continuous improvement and co-creation. And I think this is really important because today we're looking at an organizational challenge, not just an operational challenge, and this is why all those elements needs to be in place. So let's dive a little bit more into that operating model and the value creation. So this is also a little bit what you just discussed, Roman, where we're moving away from silos to actually end-to-end value, and that we move away from projects to continuous product evolution. Because that smartwatch that you were just saying, mine is still on the charger nowadays because it's told me it needed to get an update. And that update needed to be placed now, and I had to attach it to a charger. So this is why I'm not wearing them right now. But they are pushing new versions of software, and they are updating. It's a continuous process. And this is also, I think, what's different between the past, where we just have products that were delivered, and if a version was ready, it was ready, and that was the version that people used. And nowadays we see that continuous product evolution is just taking place. And that also means, we earlier saw the value system, and that means that we have to rethink the way that we are delivering those services. Again, and the operating model itself defines how work flows, how people collaborate, what technology is being used, also how governance is being applied. So what you see here is people, technology, information, partners and suppliers, and of course in the middle, and the operational value flow activities. On the other side, we see actually how we are delivering those the product and services that need to that are delivering value to our customers, and they actually show us different forms of value chains. And I think it's good to recognize that the value chain approach is, even though it looks a little bit similar, like something we were introduced by ITIL v3, the product, the service lifecycle from cradle to grave, which quite often felt more like a waterfall approach. This is not waterfall, is it, Roman? When we're looking at the value chain activities here.
No, it's not waterfall. It's iterative. It's also not a predefined sequence. This is why in this version the activities are shown as stepping stones.
Yeah.
So we use this metaphor just to indicate that you can skip some of them in some value streams, that you can move into loops. If you look at the right-hand side of the slide, the red value stream example there has a loop from deliver to support to deliver, indicating, for instance, situation when something is delivered, then it's broken, then we need to support, and then we continue to deliver. So similarly, you can build something, test, you don't like what the test results, you have to rebuild or maybe even redesign or whatever you were testing. So the order is defined by the circumstances or by the context of the value stream. The set or the scope of the activities is defined by the operating model. All eight of them are shown here, but as we discussed previously, it's possible that one organization decides to focus on only some of these value chain activities when it comes to managing digital products and services.
Yeah.
In the extreme example, think of a repair workshop. So organization whose business is to fix other people's printers. And in this logic, in terms of the life cycle of the printer or of the printing service, if you like, that organization will be only doing support. Discover, design, acquire, build will be done by, let's say, HP or Epson or whatever, or some vendor of the printers.
Yeah.
The transition, operate, and deliver will be done by the IT team providing the printing services, and some of the support, of course. But if they need to actually repair the device, then they go to that specialized organization. And that specialized organization, in that logic, can be focused on just one value chain activity when it comes to the life cycle of the printers. They may be doing other activities about other products or services, and they certainly do all of them about their repair services. But when it comes to the life cycle of the printer, they can focus on just one. And that activity will be part of the cross-organizational value streams where that workshop will be involved. It's an extreme example. Usually it's more complicated, and internal IT teams are likely to do all of this to some extent if they don't explicitly outsource them completely. But when you look at commercial organizations, they tend to specialize more and select from this spectrum of the 8 activities and delegate some of other activities to other organizations.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, steps could also be missed, like build. If you're not building, but just inquire. We don't need that build activity to be done like that. So we can go from design, acquire to transition, isn't it?
Yes. Or we don't need to acquire anything because we have all the resources available, and we just rebuild within the available scope of resources, test, and go to transition without the need for acquire.
Perfect.
Different combinations are possible.
Yeah. And so this is what operating models within this value system is offering us, and it shows us the value streams. And it's important for organizations to recognize what those value streams are, so they can also connect the right practices to it to actually understand what is expected from us and how are we providing value. Another element which I think is important to recognize is that continued improvement is perhaps more important than ever. You're introducing VUCA earlier on, and we live in a world where things constantly are changing, and we need to be able to respond to it. We need to be adaptable. So modern operating models continuously need to adapt and evolve since the world around us is changing. So it's unfortunately not a straight way, as we can see in this picture, but quite often we have to make more detours because suddenly external factors like pestle factors could happen, and that suddenly really impacts the way we are delivering our services. So continuous improvement still remains important. All right, something else I would like to introduce to you, which I really like about ITIL, from 2016, I think they were introduced the first time to us, are the guiding principles. And finally, I think that ITIL showed us that it's not just about technology and processes, but actually it is about the combination of people, process, and technology. So the ITIL guiding principles are recommendations that can be given to us to really understand how to fulfill good service management, and that is helping us in creating the right mindset. And if you already have experiences with ITIL 4, you're probably recognizing those guiding principles, which actually would help us to show correct behavior in service management environments. What I would like to do now is that we shortly dive into the combination between the guiding principles and AI, and so put it more in an AI context. So if you're looking at the first one, focus on value, this reminds, of course, very important. But if you combine focus on value to AI, I think it's important that we think about, do we actually need AI or not? And please do not use AI for the sake of AI, but always make sure that if we think about AI, and there should be this meaningful support for our stakeholders. The same as what we think about start where you are. A lot of organizations are nowadays, when they are looking at AI and the implementation of AI, they're just using another project team that acting as a silo instead of knowing what already exists, what data is already there that can be used, what models are there what we still can use, what capabilities are there that we can reuse also using AI. So leveraging existing data models capabilities before investing in new solutions, I think it's important. And that can be combined with the next one, which is don't try to be perfect at once, but learn, experiment, and learn. I also think that you said it earlier on as well, Roman, where organizations have to experiment more to learn, because we are facing new situations that we did not face before. And if you're looking at the Dave Snowden model, the Kinnovan model, it's not always obvious about what we're doing. Quite often, we have to experiment, we have to learn, and we have to use that info. And in small steps, using that feedback to make it better, and can be very helpful here. Other ones are collaborate and promote visibility, that can be combined with think and work holistically. Make sure that we have a helicopter view when we're looking at situations. Don't think about it in your silo, but actually think holistically, understand who needs to be involved in what we're doing. And also, this is something I see happening a lot in organizations where we have a lot of AI projects that did not include necessary stakeholders, and with that were not successful. So ensure that stakeholders are involved in AI decision making. Also make sure that we do understand what the wider impact will be on people, processes, services, on policies, on everything. Keep it simple and practical. Perhaps my favorite one. Avoid unnecessary complexity. Now, what I really like about how it's being told to us also through the training and in the books is that start first with just a happy flow, and then carefully add controls to it instead of think about all the exceptions that could be happening and make a model that is unusable in real life practice. And of course, the last one, optimize and automate. Introduce AI where automation improves outcomes and efficiency, and do this in a really sustainable way. And I think we can actually benefit from it. I went through them very quickly, but if you're looking at those guiding principles, they're helping us with the mindset. Just from your experience, Roman, how can we make sure that mindset is actually still there and people are not, well, it's not that, oh yeah, we heard it once, but actually they are using it in the favor and using it to having right behaviors in the organizations.
Well, you mentioned Dave Snowden, and he becomes very angry when the topic of mindset is introduced, because it kind of implies that there is a simple way to frame other people's mind and to understand it and to change it. Unfortunately, it's not the case. We can show how the principles work. We can lead by example. We can use them as a checklist for decisions we make. We, as people served, as the authors and custodians of ITIL, can show, like with this example, how the use of the principle supports a new challenge or helps to respond to a new challenge. So the guiding principles, as you just have shown, help to deal with AI. In another situation, they help to deal with something else. Every practice guide has a section, the last section, called practical recommendations on, let's say, implementing the practice, and they all are mapped to the guiding principles, because the guiding principles really help to look holistically at the task at hand and consider it from different perspectives. What I would like to add in the AI context here is that in the updated description of the guiding principles themselves, the practical recommendations on how to apply the principle, each of them includes a reference to how to use AI to have a bigger helicopter view, or more up-to-date helicopter view, or how to use AI to understand value, or how to use AI to simplify things, or how to use AI to improve collaboration. So it's interesting that it's a mutual enhancement, mutual influence. AI helps to adopt and follow the guiding principles. Guiding principles help to adopt and use AI beneficially.
Yeah, it works both ways, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, great. Just looking at the time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit, introducing a few more concepts with ITIL 5. One of them we briefly mentioned already was the product and service lifecycle. And both are using the same activities in order to, from cradle to grave, to deliver value to our customers. So they're sharing, and product and service lifecycle are sharing the same activities. Very shortly, if you're looking at the discover, I just put them in a few, logical steps, I think, and discover and design, and the alignment of the product roadmap, and also making sure that we create specifications for it, and also we create the prototypes for product and services. And of course, AI can really be helpful here when analyzing the requirements from customers, giving also predictive insights, but also when it comes to automation and rapid experimentation, this is actually where AI can be very helpful. We're looking at the next step: acquire, build, transition, operate. And we see now how we secure and allocate resources or needed, which is acquire. We develop, integrate, and really important, test the digital product and services. Transition means introducing them into operational environments, and operate, making sure that we also can maintain and monitor them to make sure that optimal performance will be happening and the systems will remain reliable. And again, AI can be helpful because for control, for verification, for security, we can trust, but we need to verify, and this is where AI can be at help. Then we go into the deliver and support element, and this is where we're actually providing the services to users, and releases are being done. And support means minimizing the impact of incidents and disasters, making sure we can restore services quickly and also strengthen the resilience of it. And again, AI can be helpful here. The only thing that we should be aware of is that AI is not replacing humans here. This is not what we want, and I'll come back to that later on. Sorry to keep it up a little bit more because I really want to get into the next topic as well, which is the 4 dimensions. The 4 dimensions is, I think, a really important concept within ITIL. I always introduce them as structural building blocks for the operating model. And the main ingredients when you are creating that perfect dish. So it offers us an holistic view about organizations. And this model is not only showing us the 4 critical elements and the 4 domains, people, technology, partners, and value streams, but also the pestle factors that you just introduced to us earlier on, and the external factors that are influencing the way that we operate, the way that we are delivering services. So let's dive a little bit into those 4 dimensions. Starting off with people and organizations, organization and people, the way we have structured ourselves. But also people is mentioned because I think understanding what capabilities people have and knowing and what people are needed with their workforce capability, but also the leadership that they are offering is what makes organizations successful or not. And we know that humans really excel at creativity, being having empathy, and making sure that we have contextual understanding and being accountable. AI can help us to process data quicker and to recognize patterns, and also sometimes to reduce biases. Although I must say, you have to make sure that you are prompting it right, because my ChatGPT was always saying, "What a good." So I'm not sure if we actually reduced biases or increased it. So it's also about the quality of prompting that has to be taken care of. But if you are reducing it, it's giving us more factual information that can help us to decide more objectively. Information technology, and this dimension, of course, is covering tools and data. It enhances automation with AI tools, with that data inside, with more intelligent workflows and chatbots that can be used to create competitive advantages. And opportunities for optimization, for automation, just really spans the entire organization. But we have to be aware that the strength of those models really depend on the quality of data and on the fact that the workflows already have been optimized. And this is also what we always say, optimize before automate. So don't just focus purely on technology here. Partners and suppliers. We are not only providers when we are delivering services, but ourselves, we are also a consumer. And we have to work together in a close relationship with those partners and suppliers. And the last one, making sure that our value streams and processes actually create the value that the customers are needing. Okay, I never went through this slide so quickly, but I want to make sure that we do have some time at the end to ask some questions, because the last thing I would like to introduce to you is AI in combination with operating models and what's needed for it. And really what needed is the next thing is that we should be using AI for augmentation and not for dictation. I see a lot of organizations that are over-reliancing on just the AI and on tools, and there's a loss of human judgment. Instead of that, we would like you to understand that decisions can be better made through AI-empowered insights, but humans should always stay accountable and should have the oversight. And there's a good example, I think, from Klarna, and they replaced hundreds of customer support roles with AI, but then they saw that customer satisfaction suddenly dropped and they started bringing people back again. So they realized that something needed to be changed. And to make sure that we don't fall in the trap of AI abdication, we need to make sure that we have good governance in place. And governance is the system by which organizations are directed and controlled. And ITIL 5 is not only introducing governance on itself, but also introducing the governance of digital technology. And what really important is here is that it says it's a human-based system. And so it still means that the humans are and will remain accountable. But there are some challenges that governance of digital systems and AI should cover. One of the things is that AI tools are only as good as the data they are trained on. So data quality and control is critical for effective outcomes. And also we should recognize in where we are using AI, because generative AIs really add new opportunities, but also introducing new risks. And the many organizations that are just uploading documents to ChatGPT thinking that no one else could see them, now that's a risk, and that's something you have to be aware of. So digital governance means that we need to understand what is being asked from us. So we need to engage with stakeholders. We need to understand the bigger picture. We need to evaluate what we're doing. We need to give direction, on which, in which organizations can manage their own work. And we need to monitor that work to make sure that, we are actually doing the things like we should, it should be happening, and evaluating, of course, that results on a continuously base. Four minutes left. Perhaps, Roman, that give you the opportunity quickly to go through the slides I just went through very quickly to see if you have to add something to it or.
I already added in the Q&A because there were a couple of very good questions from them and Harris, and one of them, answering one of them, I added a link to the AI governance white paper, which is freely available on ITIL.com, and covers the topic that we had slightly rushed into, but are in about 30 pages. And a full-scale publication and the full-scale module are almost finished and will be tested soon and should be live for public in July. So in just a couple of months, we will have more to offer on the topic of AI governance through our training partners such as Pink Elephant.
Perfect. Yeah. And what I see a lot of organizations think about AI just about tools, like ServiceNow, Top Desk, name them, they have some AI parts in it, but that's not only it, and there's much more to it what we need to be aware of.
Exactly.
Great. We would like to thank you very much for this insightful conversation. I do have a couple of questions actually to bring it to the table from my side, if that's all right with you, Richard. So I think just one for you then. Based on your experience working with some organizations, what would you say is the biggest mistakes that they make when it comes to adopting AI into their processes?
Well, perhaps what we just said, that treating AI purely as technology initiative, tools, automation, it's much more than it. We just should not see AI just as a tool that we need to implement. We need to think about the whole ecosystem and how it influences the whole ecosystem. So it impacts actually governance. And so I think implementing AI without adapting their operating model, without thinking about governance, that's a mistake. And that's something that hits organizations later on after implementation.
And saying that, Richard, where would you say that organizations should start if they want, let's say, to operationalize AI successfully within their operations?
I think, but this is my opinion, focus on value. One of the things we said was really important. Don't just implement, not every process needs AI. Not every step in our customer journey needs AI. So we really need to consider where AI actually makes value. And on the other hand, we need to understand where governance needs to be in place. So think about data, security, ownership, ethics, etc.
Great. And Roman, I do have a question for you as well. So when it comes to the newest version, so ITIL version 5, this is normally described as AI native. So what would it mean if we say that version 5 is AI native in practice?
There are three things. First, it describes, where possible, and we'll do it even further when we update the practice guides, the current practice of using AI. So we acknowledge that there is already an established way of using AI by organizations. We do describe it. It's probably too early to say it's a best practice, but it's an established good practice in many cases, and we cover it. Second, we provide a dedicated guidance for AI governance, as I mentioned. And third, AI has been used and tested a lot in the actual development of version 5 for various purposes, never for writing, but it helped a lot to make it faster and to make it better. So just like young generations of children are digitally native and they use digital technology as part of their daily life, the new version 5 of ITIL is based on AI, addresses AI, and helps to use AI.
Great. Conscious of time, I would like to thank very much everyone for attending today's webinar, and of course you, Richard and Roman, for this very insightful session. But before closing, I would like to highlight our exclusive attendee offer of 10% discount on our ITIL e-learning and public classroom courses with Pink Elephant. And in case you would like to build further on today's topics and explore the right training path for your own organizations, please feel free to get in touch directly with Pink Elephant so we can have a follow-up discussions on your training plans. The slide deck, as we already mentioned on the chat, will be shared with you upon request, and there you can find also the respective contact details so you can reach out to us and follow up from the webinar. But again, a big thank you to you, Richard and Roman, for today's sessions, and thank you all very much for attending and taking the time to be with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very
for
much.
Questions.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Good day.